think that people buy into the drama of whatever they think is going on in the nightclub late at night and form opinions about things that they don't know anything about, nor have they participated in, and they watch their current affair and their Today Tonight, and they see some movie that glorifies behaviour, and they make an assumption that that's what happens every single time.
I always imagined when I was young that I would be involved in music somehow. I wasn't quite sure how, but when I was 19, I got this job DJing. I knew immediately that that was what I was meant to be doing.
I feel like there's not enough of people being in a room and just dancing and not caring what they look like, not worrying about posting anything or getting a photo taken.
There's a minority of people who spoil it for the majority, and I always thought that the teacher that came in and punished the entire class for the actions of one person was completely unfair. And I still think that today at 57 years old.
We used to go out in 1996 to the Crown Sceptre, and we'd go in there when we got let in there because the bouncer wanted to see a girl on your arm. So we'd ring up our friends, oh, you just got to get me into this club. Then I'll buy you a drink and you can fuck off, whatever. And we'd get into the club, and me and my mates, we would, no kidding, have a couple of beers at the start of the night, and that little man, HMC, would start playing around 10 o'clock, and then, like an instant, it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and he'd taken us through this absolute magical ride. It was like you're on a magic carpet, and he just took us on this ride. Sonically, it was like, what is this music?
It's one of those things that you look at a painting or a picture and everyone sees it differently, and with music it is exactly the same. Everyone takes something from it that another person can never understand or feel or explain.
There's something about nightlife that's super alluring. I'm very much a night owl. I get excited about what happens late at night, and sometimes it feels a bit naughty and exciting, and you know, we all get to be a bit cheeky and rev each other up, and you know, there's that sort of freedom and all the abandonment that comes with that type of thing in a place where it, you know, it feels like only you exist.
I've been told by a few women in my time that I love DJing more than I love them, which isn't fair, but I put it up pretty close.
There's very few things that can make me happier than when I'm DJing or making some good music, or when I finish a good piece of music. Do you know what I mean? There's not many things that will make me happier than that. My boy definitely does. You know, I'm a father, I'm a dad, number one, like that comes first for me, but my music's I've always been into music in one form or another my whole life.
There's so little else to me, it's frightening. And I'm genuinely scared about not being part of music in some way, shape or form.
I'm passionate for my wife. I think of her a lot, but you know, if I'm honest, the amount of hours I spend a day thinking about music is ridiculous.
Been listening to music since I can remember. My dad got me a little bit into it.
I saw it in my dad when I was growing up. He used to be at home playing guitars. I have photos of him playing records at home, you know, this sort of thing. He is so into music. That passion that he had is inside me.
I had a lot of older cousins and friends who would feed me a lot of disco and funk, so I sort of grew up with that sort of stuff as well. Going through that period was interesting, especially when you're going through, I guess, mainstream Australia, where you're sort of fed what's popular, and then you sort of discover there's lots more music out there.
As a kid, I used to listen to heavy metal. You know, the Iron Maidens, the Metallicas, the AC/DCs and stuff like that. And we were on a train one day and one of my mate's sisters passed me the Walkman and she says, stop listening to that shit and listen to this. And I put the headphones on and it was Desky, Let There Be House. I was just like blown away. I was like, what the hell is this?
In my high school years was very much into art and design, and the kids that were in year 12 and we were in year 11 had free periods where they would gather sort of in the design area and they would play this sort of effectively rave music, I suppose, and we'd be in the other class going, what the hell is that? That is amazing.
It was so different, and there was nothing else like it at the time coming out.
Like nothing we'd ever heard.
Nothing.
Before.
It's like, you know, all these different sounds and like, you know, different sounds getting put together, and it's like, oh, I know that sample, I know this.
There's some really good groove and feel-good music and sound that comes out of that vastness of electronics. I mean,
You hear dance music in every ad on TV now, of different genres. You hear in every TV program. It's everywhere. Electronic music is everywhere.
A lot of people will say that electronic music isn't a form of music. You know, it's not. You're not playing an instrument, but you are. You're playing 8 instruments. You're playing a kick drum, a bass, you know, hats. You're making all of those elements, whereas a band has a single person for each of those elements. So I do find that a little bit of a false statement with electronic music, that people think, oh, it's just doof doof.
A lot of people don't realise this world that's out there and how deep it goes, how deep you can delve for this music that they don't understand even exists.
what I like about electronic music is, unlike if you go to listen to a band and the only thing that you can hear is the drummer amongst everything else, the sound in general, if you're at a good venue, is really consistent and you can just get lost in, you know, one track going into the next and into the next rather than a break to swap guitars or talk to the audience. I think it's a lot more immersive than, say, being in a band.
I used to be involved, I guess, or be a part of the punk scene in Adelaide. And the thing I really loved about punk music was that kind of raw DIY nature to it, where anyone could go and grab an instrument and then find some friends and make a band. And you'd end up with some pretty awesome music. And I always thought that like electronic music was like cheating went back then, you know? And then I started getting into stuff like Fatboy Slim and whatnot. And I was like, this is cool, I'll give it a shot. And it found out it was like, it's the same, you know? Basically anyone could go to their computer or a keyboard and make something raw and real and really engage with the people like in the dance floor.
Listen to the other sounds that are going on in the background, you know, all the other little elements that are there.
I've kind of always, ever since I kind of got into this, had very much a left foot in what I term the underground camp. I like to play music that takes people on an experience that they haven't been before if I can. I like to not necessarily ram down people's throats education, because I think that's a loose term sometimes. I don't think you really educate always a dance floor, but I do think you show a dance floor what they haven't previously experienced, or you make them have a great time without them realising, oh, they didn't actually know any of those tracks. They were awakened, their senses, their enjoyment by you taking them on a journey somewhere special.
I've always believed that music, especially electronic music, has great healing powers. And yeah, definitely helped me through a lot of tough times. Yeah.
In the early days, it still wasn't glorifying the DJs. GT and HMC playing all night, but they played with their backs. They played with their backs to the crowd, and people would just dance whichever way they wanted to dance. Yeah, it was a while before it moved to that DJ on the stage big thing.
Friends actually suggested I should start DJing because they saw how much I like music, and it was sort of the last thing on my mind.
I never intended to be a DJ ever at all. I was making some artwork for a guy who owned a nightclub, and he came around to look at the finished art and came into my house and saw all of my records and said, "What are you doing with all this music?" And I said, "Well, I love music, you know, I play it." And he said, "Why don't you come and play it in the club?" And I went, "Nah." And he said, "I'll pay you." I went, "What?" So that was when I first kind of realised that, you know, I could earn money doing this.
We'd stay up late and watch Rage on television. Central Station Records used to advertise on television at that time. That's how I discovered them. I then go to the record shop, discover that there was far more electronic music than I knew. Because I was going to pursue drama, the plan was to be an actor, and then I realised no one ever said anything good about my acting. They just said that, you know, you have a reasonably clear voice, maybe radio could be a thing. I did a radio course. From that, got into community radio, and because I was just playing the music that I enjoyed, it inevitably became electronic music. And so I was amongst the first wave of radio shows in Adelaide that played electronic music. There was just a handful of us. And then, of course, it became a very big and popular thing many years down the track.
When I was 12, I remember going to a mate's house, and his brother had decks and he had records, and he was like acid house type of stuff, you know? And he was like, wow, this is interesting, and just mucking around with the turntables and just listening to music. And I was like, wow, this is great, you know?
Well, you know, initially when I discovered the rave scene, it just seemed like a bunch of misfits all getting together and listening to this unusual rave music, and everyone was an individual and everyone was different, and that's what drew me to the rave scene initially. This is the site of the first Enchanted.
First Enchanted Forest.
Lockyer Park,
yeah,
just next to Stirling.
Yep. If you had a look that way, is which will probably show you a bit later, it's a lot thicker than what it was when we first here. The reason why we did the first circular location is you can actually see the road and you can see this from there. So fencing would have been way massive budget increase, which we weren't going to do. So we decided secret location would be the ticket to actually make sure people bought tickets and you know, didn't jump the fence, because the fence is just there and it's pretty easy to jump.
I could say I learnt how to DJ to people when I was very young, when I used to fill the jukebox at the Port Lung Football Club and collect bottles, and I used to love music back then, even then, and I used to watch people react to certain songs. So after collecting records and growing up at probably to my 17s and 18s, I landed my first DJ gig at the Mars Bar, which is an institution. And it's the first gay nightclub in Adelaide. And back then, females weren't really allowed to win DJ boxes. So the first DJ that preceded me, she actually was asked to tape down her tits and wear a hat at the first party she ever played at, but she ended up moving to Sydney. I stepped back in straight after that and managed to land a resident gig.
I was really into hip-hop in my teens, and I always looked up to Ice Cube. But it just happened that a friend of mine bought some decks and he goes, right, I'm the DJ, you're the MC, and gave me a mic, and I was like, what the fuck do I do? You know? And we just started mucking around, and yeah, and then I went to Discovery, but I was gonna stay there just for a little bit because I had to play footy the next day. And all of a sudden, like, they hand me the mic and like get on stage. I'm like, what? I've never MC'd in front of people before, man. I was just fucking around with my mate, you know?
When I first started DJing, I didn't have the 2 turntables and the mixer. It was more practicing off a tape deck and one turntable, and just practicing the mix from a tape deck to a turntable, just like that. Trying to get things lined up and getting your BPMs matched up.
I was just so fascinated by vinyl, and I just had to be a part of it. So not long after, I went out and bought some Technics, and I locked myself in my room, and I just bought $100 from MTME and learnt about, that musical tool, and it went from there. So I think coming through as a female who liked a very underground sound and played vinyl, I think naturally that's how I fell into DJing, because we're quite rare in that sense.
For me, it was house. I guess that's what I really listened to when I went out in clubs back in those days.
The word house has now got about 20 arms.
Acid house, deep house, funky house.
New disco, new house, tech house, prog house.
House music,
A lot of fucking houses,
Techno, trance, hard dance.
Electro, you got trap.
Breakbeats, psy.
Your hard trance to hard style to...
Hip-hop, R&B, can be footwork, garage.
Hardcore, deathcore, what's the other one?
Freeform, UK hardcore.
And then drum and bass, like it was jungle, it was breakbeat, then I don't know, intelligent jungle. I never fucking understood that one. Well, the rest of it was fucking dumb. Like, fucking seriously? A fucking stupid name.
I've always hated putting music into groups, into genres. It's all either good or bad, really, in my opinion. But it's the same thing with house music.
There's a very old cliche saying that house music is a feeling. It's a soul thing.
I like a lot of groove. I listen to a lot of funk, a lot of soul, a lot of blues, and I think there is a lot of that retained in house music.
There's not one sound. There's one feeling, but there's not one sound, and that is still evolving today. The house music that we used to make 10 years ago is much different to the house music that we make now. I like walking into a club and having a drink and hearing that nice fat beat, jack and hat, a dope bass line.
There's so many clubbing experiences over the years that you, I guess, associate. There's certain sounds. Could be the hi-hat, could be a 909 hi-hat, and you just go, ooh. And you put that on your track and you just go, ooh, that makes me feel good.
Listen to the hi-hats. That brings everything together. You got good hi-hats, rides, claps. That brings all the percussion together, the bass line, the keys, the strings, It all melts into one, and that's what creates that feeling.
I'm not quite sure what it is about techno that I absolutely love. Techno's a lot of things to a lot of people.
When dance music first started, everything was techno, pretty much. That's how it all started. But me, at the moment, techno is more percussive, more rhythm, more more tribal, sort of driving. It's got a funk to it, like, you know, just it rolls, you know, just, there's no, you know, it doesn't have to have a massive one big sound to set it off, but it just, you know, there's drops and edits, and I know it's more of a feeling and a groove, the whole thing grooves.
We always use the word fruity, like that fruity kind of sounds that like it's textural and ethereal, but like still tough.
For me, it's you know, forward-thinking music that doesn't really have any boundaries. It's something that comes from deep inside me.
My musical background has many different influences, man. Like, you know, from rock, I like everything that's music, you know. But yeah, throughout the years, the breakbeat thing came on, and then like jungle appears, and I'm like, wow, this is my thing.
Drum and bass, to me, or drum and bass in general, is probably the most forward-thinking style of music that I've ever heard.
I remember when I first heard drum and bass. I was living in London at the time, so it was the early 90s. The room I walked into was just mayhem. Like, there was just dudes with shirts off. It was mainly a black crowd as well, dudes with dreadlocks and all sorts of stuff, and there was, you know, shirts off, doing, I saw a guy do a backflip off the wall, and it was just these driving bass lines and the skittering beats, and it blew me away, and I've become a fan straight away.
It kind of encaptures all different styles of music, whether it's classical, heavy metal, jazz, and it puts it all together in this moulded sound that I think no other style of music has ever been able to replicate. And I think that is owed mainly to its speed and to the beat, the break beat, because it's fast. But the break beat is not always fast, it can be really slow. So you can kind of mould everything in and place it in the right spot within the music and come up with something totally different to everything else.
There's something about it for me, especially in drum and bass, where it just massages all the problems away.
I got led into the dubstep from my days in jungle and drum and bass. So in 1993, we started to hear all these UK breakbeat sounds, and it was ragga vocals and air horns and sirens and dogs barking and a lot of heavy dub and reggae influences, and I always loved dub and reggae, so I was like, wow, you know, this is for me. And 2007, dubstep come along, and it was like, wow. It was like the day I discovered jungle all over again. I sort of found this music that I connected with on so many different levels. It had everything in it. It had jungle sounds, it had hip-hop sounds, it had jazz, it had dub reggae. Everything was in there. It was like the perfect music for me.
I don't know how I stumbled on trance, but trance spoke to me. When that came along and I discovered that, I realised that the vocal ability and the music and the songs were written to really move people. And that was an exciting time.
For me, trance is that style of music that takes you on a journey. It is more about, you know, the melody, the different elements of the track.
And it has a story almost, like it starts somewhere, it goes somewhere, and it ends somewhere.
Genres these days, everyone's all about the drop, you know, it's about the drop. I was like, hang on a sec, isn't there more elements to a track than just a drop, you know? How about the strings, you know, the instrumental behind it, you know, all the elements that make up the track.
It's quite funny because when I was a kid, my mother forced me to do piano lessons. Well, probably that's where I get my like of music as well later on in life. But to me, trance, and I've always listened to, it sounds very, symphonies in that when it's in your Beethoven, it's very similar sounding to that. You know, you've got that many sounds in there that melt together, that build up. You know, you have your breakdowns.
You have 2-3 minute breakdowns where you can just, you know, you see the people in the crowd just taking it in and enjoying themselves.
Psytrance, again, is a different altogether in that it's more to do with the earth.
Being on a Psytrance dance floor is hard to explain sometimes. You go from an individual to this giant thing that just pulsates and grooves and reacts off each other, and it's just an amazing experience. And that is hard to find anywhere else for me. Those big squelching, squirling sounds that roll in one ear and out the other, driving bass lines that punch through you. Yeah, that is psychedelic, that has that squishy, crawling, twisting sound.
Hard house music, some people say it's been and gone, but I still enjoy making it, you know. I have a few breaks here and there from it. I always tend to come back to it. I don't know, there's something about it that I really like. It's the sort of music you go to the gym and work out to, you know. You'll clean the house, you get the house cleaned in half an hour.
It's a very niche sound. You either like it or you don't, I think. But for me, it's got balls, but it's fun. And I grew up playing piano, and that old school 90s hard house has a lot of pianos in it. And I think that's sort of what I fell in love with. But it's just, it gives me shivers. I love it.
Oh, it's electric, absolutely electric. Fists in the air pumping, people screaming, shouting. Yeah, it's huge.
The slower tempo dance music didn't resonate with me. It was very, to me it was very monotonous, very just straightforward and that sort of thing. So you could take it or leave it, whereas with hardcore it just sort of grabbed me by the throat. It made me want to listen. It made me, stand up and, go, wow. To me, that's what makes hardcore such an exciting and such an amazing genre, is that it's one of the only forms of dance music that has a range of BPM that goes from about 130 BPM through to about 250 BPM. It's got a range of sounds that goes from very harsh, grinding, dark and atmospheric sounds, very, very crunchy industrial sounds, to very smooth, calm, pleasant sounds. It sort of provides a range of emotions through those sounds.
Yeah, EDM. It's pretty broad, I guess. Like, a lot of people are explaining it pretty much anything electronic these days, so anything made by computers. But I'd say to me, EDM would be the more commercial side of music. I wouldn't really put techno under EDM. I wouldn't really put trance under EDM.
What I categorise as EDM personally myself are more of those sort of electro-style genres, the commercials type music.
It's across the whole dance music scene at the moment. Everyone's like, what's happening? Everyone's kind of bored of this particular EDM sound. Hate that word. But it describes kind of the thing, it's, everyone's sick of the same festival copy-pasted track that's essentially the same track.
What it is, it's basically like having sex, like EDM is. It's like, there's too much of a highs and lows. So it's like someone being on Viagra and then just dropping off in 2 seconds. It's like a climax and then anti-climax and then a drop, and that's it. That's what EDM is. At least with techno and house music, it's like a journey. It keeps you there and you can keep going all night long. That's it.
love of it is to be entertained, and I think about that when I'm playing, you know, what somebody else is thinking about out there, you know, you're making their night, or their day, their experience. And if you click and get it right, then it's very rewarding.
I love performing and I love making people smile. So for me, knowing that people are having a good time is something that means a lot to me.
I honestly don't think there's a better feeling than playing your own song to a crowd of people and seeing how they react to it.
It's one of the most immediate, satisfactory feelings you can get when you know people are dancing to your music and you've played a nice set and people come up and tell you afterwards, you know, what a nice set that was and blah blah. Yeah, there's not much more immediate gratification than that. You know, I guess it's the same as anybody that is in the theatre or, you know, in a band or on stage of any kind. That audience reaction is what I guess keeps people going. It's probably what keeps Madonna going, you know.
Sharing the music with the people. Pulling out that tune that no one's heard, that you know is going to make everyone on the dance floor smile or grimace accordingly with that bass face. Just having that moment with them that is very, very special between you and the dance floor.
When you meet someone on the dance floor, you kind of like, everyone's equal, they're all on the same page. And you kind of feel like you've had a bond with this person whom you've never even met before.
You can be fat, thin, 60, 20. We're all one family.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just complete acceptance, basically. No pressure, just free to be yourself, free to have your own expressions, free to dress how you want, behave like everyone's so respectful and loving and kind, and nobody cares that I'm 46, you know, because I just party with all the young ones, and it's just complete acceptance.
I love dancing, personally. I'm not quite sure if there are many DJs who actually dance. On many occasions, I've put on, in the middle of, you know, getting the next track ready in time, like so quickly so I could go out on the dance floor and have a dance myself, because that's what I love doing. It's all about dancing, right? Yeah.
I guess we've all played in bigger stages and bigger venues, but I actually like the intimacy of being close to someone who can actually touch you and you know, shake your hand and, you know, slap your face or whatever that may be, and seeing the look in their eyes, you know, that to me still gives me the biggest thrill.
I love being up there playing music. I love seeing people happy. I love seeing people dancing. That is a lot of fun for me to give them that enjoyment. That's what I love.
For me, the format, whether you're playing vinyl, digital, spoons, whatever, it's relevant.
Our club is particularly geared toward people who play from vinyl. I mean, I don't care what anybody says, vinyl sounds better than anything else. I mean, end of story. It does sound better. There's no two ways about that. And people can tell me that it doesn't, but they're full of shit, because it does sound better.
I think there's a lot of music that I play, music that I make, and edits that I make, and it's very hard to press it onto vinyl.
I don't care how much more convenient it is or how much, you know, really it's just a matter of convenience. You're basically lazy. You can't be bothered carrying your records up the stairs, so you bring an MP3, you know, a USB stick with MP3s on. Really?
For me, it kind of makes it sound pointless to make something on a computer, to kind of press it onto vinyl and sonically almost degrade it.
Digital isn't a physical form. You don't actually get to own anything. You've got it on your laptop, you've got it on your iPad. When they go down, they're not going to be around anymore. You've got a vinyl, it will last forever if it's looked after. And even if you might get those pops and cracks, it still has a beautiful sound about it every time. It's warmth, it's analogue, it's human.
In terms of DJing, I think people that play with records, they feel a connection to it in a different way that you might in a digital format, and so they like the touch and the feel of it, and then, you know, like turns into this horrible addiction that you just can't shake, and all of a sudden spending every last dollar that you have on records.
There is some magic about vinyl. There is something about it, like when you get a particular track that's pressed only 300 times. Only 300 people will have that track.
I have people going, oh, you know, is there going to be a digital release of, you know, 008, which only came out on vinyl? And I'm like, nah, there's not. Oh, where can I get a copy then? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe check Discogs. And I come back going, dude, it's $180 on Discogs. And I'm like, yes. Yeah, so that makes me happy. I like just putting stuff out and then not putting anything else out, so that they become like some kind of, you know, some kind of rare jewel that's out there that people want to hunt down and find and pay lots of money for, you know, just to have a copy. I think that's awesome. Not everybody should have everything, you know. People should be denied stuff.
Lose myself in a crowd, drink hard and shout out loud. Let the spirit take me, give me something to see.
Back in the day, to use that expression, the starting point where you bought the records and built your collection, maybe bought turntables, used your mates, it did used to weed out a lot of people very fast that wouldn't see the distance out because the vinyls are expensive. Turntables weren't cheap to buy, and it wasn't easy to do. It wasn't like you just turned up to it and you were instantly good at it.
These things are not digital. They're an analogue piece of machinery and they move around at different speeds. So when you lock it in, you know, that's the reward of it.
Everyone is a bloody DJ, and anyone can have a dig and anyone can do it because there's things that sync it all up.
You can just look at a CDJ these days and go, oh, 128.5 or 123 or whatever, and just go bang.
It's just becoming too easy, man. And by becoming too easy, what I'm saying is, man, you know, you press a sync one and the fucking things that sync together, well, that's not what you're supposed to fucking do.
I love vinyl. Who doesn't, right? We all love vinyl. The argument's just gone on for way too long, and I don't know why people are still talking about it. It's not important. It really isn't. What is important is the music. First of all, without question. However, I do think that DJing with vinyl is a great art form and shouldn't be lost. So I admire the DJs that can still go out and especially travel around the world with vinyl. That's not easy. I wouldn't do it myself, but I do admire the ones that can do it. And I think it is important to keep the vinyl DJ there because of the art form. You don't, seeing somebody play CDs is just not quite the same. Or a laptop, DJ, USB, whatever, it's not the same. It doesn't look as exciting. It doesn't look as beautiful.
If you've ever seen any of those cooking shows with the, you know, like Kitchen Rules or whatever, but Jesus, they make some massive basic errors. You know, how can you forget, that ingredient, you know? For instance, it's just the same thing, you know. People think that they're DJs, but, you know, are they any good? That's the thing.
Everyone is a DJ nowadays.
Are they? You know, everyone's a DJ, really?
Well, everyone was a guitarist. Everyone has a guitar or a piano or a keyboard, and I think it's just kind of the next instrument that people have moved on to.
I think they think it's an easy job. I think they think it's easy money. It's an easy way to get girls, an easy way to all sorts of stupid things like that.
I love it when you see a Facebook page and a guy go, yeah, come and see me DJ. And then they've got their picture of their laptop and a controller perched on a $1,000 Techno XSL 1200 turntable, and I just cringe.
When I grew up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. When kids grow up these days, I want to be a DJ because they see this evolution of dance music on the TV, you know? They see it on Channel 10, David Guetta's The Olympics, you know?
When I was running a pretty successful Thursday night, nearly everyone I shook hands with slipped a CD in my hand. You know, I'm a DJ. Okay, have you mixed in front of a crowd before? No, which is fine because we're all going to start somewhere. But it wasn't just that, it was, I want to play 12 to 2. Play 12 to 2. You got people like myself and other guys that have been doing this for a long time. What's going to make you any different? Well, I've just downloaded the latest, you know, top 20 from Beatport. Okay, so have I. Well, so has that guy. Anything else?
You find when I'm gone and they got me in bliss. Damn, these feathers into one, but they miss.
It's not so much about, you know, standing on a desk and just waving your hands around.
It's about creating a collection of music that you love and then working out a way to make that cohesive when you're playing it to an audience.
I can tell when someone's mixing and they're into the music. It doesn't have to be that they're the best blender ever and they're doing 8-minute seamless mixes from one track to the other and you can't hear a tiny little hat out or something. But you know, you hear someone working it, they're working the music, and I give them respect straight away for that.
My favourite DJs are not DJs that play music that I love from beginning to end. They'll play some music that I know sometimes, they'll play some music that I don't know, they'll play some music that I hate. But at least they're challenging my own thoughts and understanding about music, and often it'll be just because I'm not ready for it. They're too forward thinking. And I'll discover it a year after hearing it in the first place. God damn it, I wasn't there first, I wasn't ready.
I can remember some huge, iconic house music records now that when I first played them, absolutely cleaned the floor for a couple of times. Daft Punk's One More Time, pretty much the first couple of times I played it, cleared the floor. And what I figured out is that had too big a gap in between that vocal breakdown. So I got 2 copies with it, and when the breakdown started, I would drop one, as soon as the first phrase finished, I would start the next one at the same phrase and weave them in and out for the whole breakdown. And that way the sound never dropped out. The problem was, like usually I'd end up with like a record under my arm. That was for the next record because you're mixing together the 2 outros and all of a sudden you have to grab another record, quickly find where that is, and more often than not, mixing, actually adjusting the pitch fader as you're mixing it in.
But now, you know, you got Shazam, you got Soundhound, you know, you got Torrance. And they're just, mate, they're coming up to me with names of songs, like on their phone, that I have no idea what it is. I just say, what song is that? They're like, what? You don't know what this song is? What type of DJ are you? I'm like, shut up, man, you're still dancing.
Mixing style has changed a lot over the years. It's just so fast now. And it's like they're not paying enough respect to the artist who's just spent, you know, three weeks producing this 6-minute song, and you get to hear a minute of it in a DJ set. And they've, you know, a good track to me is written like a journey, and you'll place it within your set to create that journey and make your own journey out of it. And
A lot of the DJs just slam all these tracks in, and you go for an hour, it just sounds the same. And it's like, well, you know, that was cool, but I want to hear these guys, what they're making. So that's when you need the real DJ up there, taking you on a journey.
You want your DJs to be able to play to a crowd. You want someone who has the experience to know when they're losing a dance floor, how they're going to bring that back. Not someone who goes there with a set playlist and goes, this is what I want to hear, this is what I want to do, and I don't care what the crowd's reaction is, they're here to see me play.
The good DJs have that. They've got an amazing music collection, they've got an ear, but they've just got that ability to look at a room, feel it, sum it up, and kind of click with those people. And, you know, percentages come into it. No, there are fails. There are times when you fail and there's times when you don't quite get it right. I've been there, others have been there. You know, you can't be perfect. We're not machines. It's part of the risk or enjoyment of the job, you know, is the challenge of it. But the good guys, they get that right pretty much every time.
Thing has progressed. It's all about social media with Facebook and how many friends, thousands of friends they have on Facebook, and whether they can mix or not, it's another story.
If you didn't bring friends to your event, then you weren't booked for the next gig. And for me, I thought that was wrong. I think we need to go back, you know, 5-10 years before the whole social media thing and be more about booking DJs simply because they can play to a crowd.
It really boils down to, at the end of the day, we're here to keep money going over that bar for the club owner. The longer they stay open, the longer we get to play, the more we get paid, basically.
Being a DJ, people think, you know, you're just a jukebox playing someone else's music, but it's not all the case these days. You know, a lot of DJs are playing their own tracks.
For a long time, you could just be a producer or you were a DJ. It was very rare that you were both things.
The two things are very different, in my opinion. There's a producer and there's a DJ. They're different things. I've seen a lot of amazing producers who will remain nameless, producers that I completely look up to, that really, and have been getting gigs as DJs over the years, who don't cut it as DJs, are really so boring.
So back in our day, a good DJ could just get gigs. There was DJs who toured the world without making any music at all. They were just sick DJs.
Well, Carl Cox is a good example. He made
a few tunes.
He made a few tunes, but he wasn't a producer predominantly. He was just booked around the world with his skills.
Just rocket DJ, man. He just brought the party.
There's not a lot of money to be achieved from working and making music productions. And don't get me wrong, not everything's about money, but if you're locked away in a studio and buying equipment and keeping up to date with all of that, there's obviously an income you need. And the producers who maybe have spent 10 years honing their craft, being very close to being homeless, you know, they now need to earn some money from it. They're coming into the DJ environment because that's actually where they get their income.
I see myself as a DJ rather than a producer. I think I'm way better at playing music than making it.
Yeah, go like this. It is a case now that if you're wanting to be a DJ and play, you pretty much have to be a producer. You're almost at that point.
I tried to play a lot of my own music in my DJ sets. I think that's maybe what set me apart from a lot of other guys at the time. You know, it was those tracks that I was making in my bedroom studio and playing in my DJ sets that got people's attention.
It's a lot easier for people to make music these days, which I think is so good. I mean, even I have Ableton Live 9 and, you know, I'd mess around and just extend out some intros for tracks that I've always wanted to be able to mix into, you know. Stephanie Mills, what's her track? Never knew love like this before. It's got a real slow sort of intro with no beat and, you know, I mean, which is, it's okay if you're kind of starting out with that track, you know, but if you want to mix that track in, it's nice to take some of the bit from the middle and put it at the start so that you can just keep the beat going and then, you know, then she just starts singing the track like normal and, you know, Yeah, and you have to do that on an MP3 because it's not on a record. So as long as you got some records there, then I'm happy. You know, just don't rely totally on your USB stick.
Technology has meant that, and the prices coming down has meant that people can produce their music, and whether it's doing re-edits like you were talking about tonight, or whether it's writing completely original tracks, it's a good thing. The issue once again is that now we've got people who are competing with each other in the sense that they're paying for SoundCloud followers and they're paying for Facebook likes and all this sort of stuff. And once again, these people have got no fucking idea why they're doing it. You know, they're just trying to be popular. You know, you look on Beatport or something like that, and there'd be, you go to the deep house area, which is obviously the genre of the moment, I suppose, and there'll be 300, 400 EPs released a day. You know, I've counted them once. It was ridiculous. So there's a lot of music out there, so it's hard to get heard. But
on the same token, though, I think that gives the same thing with DJing. You have to elevate what you're doing into. Yeah, you have to be better.
It is a full-time job, and yeah, if you want to get by making music, then you need to treat it like that.
It requires massive amounts of time. From my experience anyway, it definitely requires someone to spend lots of time, and in order to do that, I think you have to be passionate about it.
I will literally be in there for 10 hours and my friends ring me, and I'll miss going out with them because I didn't even realise what time it is, and I'm left sitting in the dark.
You've got to be willing to want to sit in a room by yourself for 12 hours and think that's the best thing ever. Just tweaking a kick drum, you know, to you that's heaven. And you might have a cup of tea and a bit of toasted Vegemite every now and then, but you know, it's just like that's what it's about.
I spent 7 years learning software, learning how to sample, learning how to write beats, learning how to write bass lines, learning from scratch, so I could actually take myself to the next level, which was making my own tunes.
Been teaching the electronic music production course since 2005. That's been the best part of being involved with music. It's just been able to help young people just learn how to use the equipment, and most of the people who are doing the course, they want to learn how to produce house music or it might be genres like trap or electro or whatever, and we assume no prior knowledge and we just start building them up. So we use Ableton Live software, we look at drum machines and synthesizers and all those kinds of things, and kind of just start building up their skill set to get to the point where they're, I suppose, proficient with the tools. We can't teach talent, that's the thing that's really hard. I mean, I've had people like, Sonny Federa is a great one, who was a student in one of my first courses. And he just had a talent, you can't teach that, but you can teach how to use the tools and how to get the best out of, the equipment. So that's what I get a buzz out of, being able to do that. Whoa, man, that's absolutely awesome. Yeah. That's really, really well done. I love the ambient sounds that you've gone and put in there and how that's built up. You've arranged it really well. The track really builds nicely. So you've obviously got a really good grasp of how the songs are meant to, fit together. And mate, I'm really impressed with this. It's really, really well done. The mastering is important. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly something that you need to do, but you can't polish a turd, basically. So if you have a crap mix here, the mastering isn't going to fix that at all. I have had people who've come into the course and in the first day they've introduced themselves, have said, I'm doing this course because I want to be rich and famous. And I think you don't get it already,
That makes you the shit. That makes you the shit.
I've always been huge in supporting the music that comes out of Adelaide. I think we've got a phenomenal plethora of artists, underground artists, real artists.
Hello and welcome to tonight's show on Fresh Air, Fresh 92.7. I'm your host Caroline Tucker and I'm going to be taking you through Adelaide's best and local music. We've got interviews with Patrick Lang as well as interviews with the beautiful Nevada from Southport about her brand new single Do It Right, out on Unspeakable Records. Right now though, we've got the very talented Luke Million with Archetype featuring Jay Swan on Fresh Air.
It's Drive on Fresh 92.7. That one right there, brand new stuff from Votez. Let's keep the Adelaide vibes going right now. This is TK Minded, teaming up with Paces. A track right there, Letting Go from More and More. Now, Uberjack joined me in the studio just a couple of weeks ago. Time to get some Adelaide music right now, courtesy of Flamingo. These guys have been kicking around for a while, but they've got a new single out. It's called Hypnotize. You're listening to Drive on Fresh.
What you think when you're alone? Got you hypnotized. Seeing lights crash wall to wall. I don't make this up. I don't make this up.
With radio, it's all about just trying to give something back to the community. Fresh has been a big part of my life. Obviously, I listened to Coast FM first, but once Fresh started, I listened to it religiously from, 9 at night till 9 in the morning or whatever it was when it was 12 hours a day. I love the community at Fresh because we all work together, we're all pushing for the music and for the community and just basically trying to just build each other up and get everyone out there and support each other.
I think that Adelaide should feel very lucky that it's got electronic music on the radio to the degree that it has, because it's not about us keeping it to ourselves. It's about sharing it as much as humanly possible. I don't want this to die. I want this to get bigger. I want my kids to grow up listening to this stuff and be as passionate about it as I am, and to discover it in the same way that I did, maybe via different platforms, not always on the radio. But it's got to be about that sense of discovery, I think.
Adelaide was the dance music capital of Australia. It was. I remember at La Rocks, meeting people from Sydney and Melbourne saying, oh, we come here because there's nothing like this in Melbourne and Sydney. Unfortunately, that does not reflect in our nightlife anymore, in our club scene. These young kids now don't appreciate that kind of music. Not in Adelaide anyway. If you go to Melbourne, it's totally different. They love it. They feed off it. They can't get enough of it because it's cool. For some reason here in Adelaide, and there's one radio station that I'm really not favourable for what they play during the day, they're the educators. They're the people that should be playing all this amazing music that we have. But no, they want to play Calvin Harris or the Bangers. What is that? I don't even know what that is.
It would be foolish of us to play the coolest underground music on the radio, because if we did that, we wouldn't have an audience. We'd have a small and extremely passionate audience. There's no doubt about it. Those people would love us. They would go out in the community and talk about how great Fresh was, but we don't feel like it's doing the best possible job and building a community. In years gone by, because people saw it as a community station and almost felt that if they were making music, they should be entitled to be played on the radio. I think that happened a lot of the time. But from an audience's perspective, you would hear that music and go, this is pretty ordinary. Because a lot of the time, the stuff that they played was ordinary. What Fresh has done in recent years is, if you set the benchmark high and make it aspirational, that people want those opportunities, and as a result, they lift to achieve that standard. So what we did was, instead of playing, say for example, we were playing 50 local artists, we looked at that group of 50 and said, of those 50, which of these artists could be positioned alongside the likes of Skrillex, Diplo, Calvin Harris, the most well-known names in electronic music. And if you played those songs back to back, would people still listen, or would they tune out? It worked out that there was, a reasonable number of songs that were being made locally that we felt could sit alongside some of those artists, because it's necessary for us to play some of those acts to build the biggest possible audience. And then what we did was just played them live. And so some of the other artists who had been played previously and then weren't sort of developed the attitude that you're favouring those people. And we said, yes, we are favouring them because they're very good. And then eventually the culture changed where people went, well, we're not going to get any love unless we get better.
What my first ever goal was as a producer was I wanted to make something that got played on that radio show, and that is what started the whole Uberjacks. Like, that is literally it. From listening to this radio station going, hey, I want to make music. There's a radio station that is going to play my music if it's good enough, and I know how to get it there. So I went into my bedroom and I learned how to make music.
If you're playing mainstream house music in HQ on the weekend, on a Friday, Saturday night, you could probably live on that. But if you're playing a real alternative underground sound, you're going to be working full-time or part-time elsewhere.
I was talking to this guy the other day, and he was telling me, he was like, dude, man, like, I want to approach a pub and play for 6 hours and play for free. And I just said, look, dude, man, honestly, please don't do that. And it's happening a lot. A lot of the young DJs, man, they're not charging. So promoters are fucking taking advantage of that, and then they expect everyone else to fuck off.
I know playing drum and bass, and I play fairly underground drum and bass, that it's not really going to be self-sufficient for me to be a DJ. So that's why I've gone the way I've gone and studied to become a sound technician.
I'd love to give up everything and just make music and cut tracks, but I need to add on to that with an extra job. So I teach at TAFE.
Full-time career, earned a wage, self-supporting completely. I was working at Central Station at the time when vinyl was disappearing, CDs were then disappearing, and then the revolution of iTunes and electronic music in that medium. So I couldn't even hold down a job even in the music industry at that point because it had moved so far forward, and you couldn't get a job in a record store and be a DJ like most people were.
I'm in the midst of trying to make it a full-time thing right now, but I'm working 2 jobs right now.
I've never had a day job. I think to make it in the industry, in the music industry, you need to dedicate a big part of your life. I wasn't going to interrupt that by having a day job. I just wasn't going to do it. And if it meant that I had no money, then so be it. I didn't care. There was nothing that was going to interfere with what I wanted to do.
I used to have a day job. I was just lucky enough that I don't need to anymore. But I understand, you make your own luck. I'm pretty lucky, but you make your own luck. But at the same time, I feel lucky because there's not many people that get to do that.
It's very lopsided. You have your David Guettas, your Calvin Harrises that are making $12 million a month. And then you've got, I don't know, respected underground artists that still have a day job.
I don't like that people download music for free. In fact, I hate it.
We'll release something like 4-track EP on Beatport or Tracksource or whatever, and then on some Russian website, then the very next day, they're giving it away for free.
I'd like to think that that artists would be able to make the money that they deserve from having put so much time and love into the music that they create.
CBD's controversial lockout laws are being credited for a dramatic decrease in alcohol-fuelled violence.
I think nightclubs have a bad name because most people don't access them. It's as simple as that.
The way media portrays nightlife in general is very negative.
It's the government's solution to drunken late-night crime, extra patrols, no glass and a 3 a.m. lockout.
They've always demonised it and vilified it and made it look bad. And I guess they've got a public interest at heart, but public interest should be balanced with truth and fair reporting.
It's not a newspaper headline if it's like, oh, guy 26 from Elizabeth went out and had a good time, is it?
I've seen headlines like drugs, sex and rock and roll as thousands go wild at the Adelaide jail on the front of the advertiser, which was about an Adelaide jail rave, which was hilarious. The way they described it was like some orgy full of debauchery, and I'm thinking, I was there, where the hell was that?
It's a hell of a lot safer than everyone thinks.
The portrayal of the West End is just hilarious. Like, it's just ridiculous. They'll take one example and really, really flog it, which might not be a true representation of what is actually occurring there on a regular basis.
When I've walked down Hindley Street, for example, some media will have you believe it's like a war zone on a Saturday night, but it's not. It's mostly people out having a good time, having a good night.
In 32 years of DJing, I've probably seen one fight in a club.
I've never been involved in any violence myself.
Never, not even once. In my 6.5 years on Hindley Street, I saw two bad incidences. That's what would happen on any late night strip in the world, you know.
Most of the fighting that I see starts on the outside of clubs, never inside.
Inside nightclubs, you have security, and their job is to make you feel safe, and their job is to be right on any sort of altercations and remove those people.
The troubles on the streets doesn't come from nightclubs. It comes from people that abuse alcohol and drugs. And nightclubs are pretty much the safest place you can be, particularly these days with the rules and regulations surrounding security and responsible service of alcohol. You know, people want to do the right thing, especially owners, so they do their best to make sure that their venues are safe places.
I think it's safer in a club. I think you choose when to leave, not get thrown out at a certain time, or you get locked out, or you walk outside, then all of a sudden you're locked out, you're left from your friends, you can't get home, and then then what do? You walk the street. Your phone's flat, you can't get home. What do? You walk down the street and you get punched in the head.
While we're on our way to the next venue, we came out of the second door on the left, walked down to here. The guy that assaulted me was in front of this area here. He then struck me. I've gone down on one knee next to that bin. We had to leave the venue we're at to get across to Red Square before lockout. Even if you're in the line at 3 a.m, you can't get in. You have to be in those doors before 3. The police was saying on the night that he does hang out on Hindley Street, and he has gotten into this sort of trouble before. Actually, he was quite known to him. To have someone like that still able to walk around and get away with it, sort of sends the wrong message that it's acceptable.
I guess overall the main impetus for the government was probably around the street crime and the street violence that was seemingly to have an upward trend on the streets, and certainly it was quite evident that as paramedics we were obviously bearing the brunt of a lot of that stuff and seeing it. And I can only talk anecdotally, but I guess for a period of time there, it was just a frequent occurrence. Like, we'd go to 4 or 5 call-outs on one crew alone at times, on one night shift on a Saturday or a Friday night, or even the public holidays, Hindley Street, those sorts of areas. What that was directly attributed to, I can't answer. Like, there probably is nothing that's collected data or statistics around that, but just from being on the front line, that was what we were seeing and what we were experiencing, and I guess something had to be done because people were dying. They were getting extremely badly hurt, And it was through the actions of other people's stupidity mostly.
We shouldn't be having to be responsible for what happens on the street. That's the job of the police, and the police should be doing their job. Simple as that.
Since the tough new stance was introduced last October, the government claims crime has dropped nearly 25%.
It's the evidence that we have based on Adelaide. Yes, the figures do exist. They come from government. All the robust information that's come from other jurisdictions have all had independent auditing or review processes or some level of, separate buy-in, so to speak. And I guess that would be where more validity in those figures might be coming from. But to this day, to my knowledge at least, there hasn't been anything like that. They're just using internal numbers. So you can make statistics say whatever you want them to say when you're trying to compel an argument.
These improvements are at the upper end of my imagination.
If it initially dips, you'd expect that because you've changed something, there's going to be cause and effect. But what happens over that longer sustained period is a totally different kettle of fish. Like, that's where your real evidence should be drawn from. And I know the KPMG reports from the Victorian lockouts and a number of world published papers are sort of suggesting that, that is certainly in line with what happens. You do get that initial dip, but over time it just gradually comes back to the levels or not exceeds what it was beforehand or spreads the problem elsewhere.
We were dead against it. We were one of the few places left that has a 5 a.m. licence. So it was going to affect us directly and, in a pretty big way. We were also a place that a lot of people came to post other things, So like if they're, like the small bars in the area, they would close at 2, and then people would come down to us because they could kick on till 5 and have a dance.
If it was blanket and you had everyone being shut down like the casino and all the gaming rooms and all, if everyone shut at 3 o'clock and wasn't allowed to let another person in, I'd be happy.
Let's promote gambling and drinking till the wee hours of the morning then. That's just, I can't understand that. If you're going to have a rule, it's got to be for everybody. But I suppose that all comes down to government kickbacks, doesn't it, really?
But I think it discriminates against some people like shift workers and industry workers. You finish work at a pub, all night you've been there, you want to go for a drink, and you can't go anywhere because of the lockout.
You go to the casino for a beer and just to catch up with some friends after work when you can't get it anywhere else, and you almost have to spend money on gambling there. Like, you want to go to the blackjack table, you want to go put money into the pokies, you want to do something because there's no pool tables, there's no music, there's no atmosphere apart from the gambling.
We all make mistakes.
I've got mates who go to the casino a lot more than they used to, and they're now struggling because they spend too much money. And they're struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling, week to week because they go to the casino because nothing else is open at that time. And it's really sad to see.
The lockouts, I got a massive problem with the lockout.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, I'm not out that often to care that much about it, but if I think about just the great nights I've had in Adelaide, whether it was just rocking up to Mile High or something at 5 in the morning and going for a boogie there, and you can't do that anymore. It's ridiculous.
I was really late to coming out into town, and this is like my 3rd year in town, and the first year was so amazing, and it was before the lockout, and then I've had like this 2 years or year and a half of it, and like it's heartbreaking.
For a start, it just kills the grassroots level of starting at the bottom and coming up from that. When I look back now and I think like the path that I took to being a DJ would be a lot harder now that the lockouts are in.
People that are out after 3 o'clock probably hear less commercial music, so that the more underground scene lived in the later hours of the night, so that doesn't exist these days.
I can't give as many people the like closing experience, and like for some people, man, like especially for me, like that's what got me like addicted to like clubbing, was like that closed set.
Most of my sets are either 3 or 4:30, so anyone that wants to come see me from another club obviously can't get into the club after I've started. Yeah, I definitely feel the heat of the lockout laws.
I'm totally on board with the fact that something actually needed to be done, because you can't keep having people being killed or hurt, significantly hurt, for the sake of, you know, people wanting to go out. I don't know whether the lockout was the right approach. Certainly we have seen an initial decrease, but I'm still seeing a range of alcohol-related problems, and I think more at the core is this undertone of binge culture and the normalisation of drinking.
So when we see the Melbourne Cup or any of these other events where people are passed out, drunk, fighting or whatever, it seems it's okay because it's a socially accepted event, but as soon as there's a nightclub involved, it's all their fault. And that evil dance music.
That classic example would be some of the festivals that go on over long weekends in Adelaide. They might be wine tours or wine tasting type things, but a lot of venues in town tend to put on buses, cart people down there, bring them back to town. They're getting back to the city 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. By 8, 9 o'clock at night, they're legless. How does a lockout law in that space, if that's what they're talking about, harm minimisation, keeping people safe, how is that responsible service of alcohol? How you're just driving or feeding the beast in that instance. That plays no part. The lockout laws play no part in that sort of behaviour. So that to me sort of tells you that there is an endemic problem with binge culture. There is a problem with alcohol in this country, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Probably more so than some of the other things that they seem to be thinking that are the problems. I agree that there's problems after 3 a.m. on the streets, but you're going to have those problems between midnight and 3 a.m. as well. So why is, like you say, the arbitrary number 3 a.m.?
There are valid reasons why lockout laws shouldn't exist, and we've seen many businesses close as a result of these decisions being made. It's just about arguing these points in the right way.
And they've affected basically every late night venue that there is. Of course, when you lose revenue, it means that sometimes you have to shed jobs as well. You know, and when you're employing people who are basically working part-time to support themselves while they're studying their degree, and there's less jobs around for those people, you'll find exactly the situation that we're in at the moment, where our unemployment rate is worse than Tasmania's.
We've got like an exodus of youth in the state, and things like lockouts are just, you know, like they're just amplifying like youth culture, like to move away from Adelaide. Like Melbourne doesn't need any more young crew, we need them here. Like we're gonna be there'll be gopher races and tumbleweeds down Harnley Street before we know it, you know?
My lovely city of Melbourne had lockout laws for a week. The thing about Melbourne, which I like, and I think they could do more of, is the understanding that we are probably the cultural hub of Australia. I'd like to think that. There's amazing culture and creativity coming out of every city, but I think the relationship between maybe the government or the arts department and what's happening and the people, it's just, there's a good community, and it's been that way for a long time. So when you start closing the doors on people and you start restricting people from creativity and expressing themselves, there's only negative side effects.
I think the music is so often sort of dismissed as just a complement to other industries, Whereas the state government at the moment is very much focused on building a music industry in Adelaide. You know, in the past it was if you became good at what you were doing, you inevitably left Adelaide and went elsewhere. Well, they can now see the economic value in that. And as a result are really trying to build the infrastructure to enable people to remain in Adelaide, which is exciting because, of course, it's a much more low-cost option. It makes financial sense if only you can build the industry around people here, or at least, at minimum, ensure that it continues to be their home base.
I am completely not religious, but I praise Jesus that it didn't happen to us, I'll be honest with you.
I think there's one thing you can never do. You can never stop us from having fun. Whether it goes to underground house parties, I've seen a lot more warehouse parties happening over the last couple of years, that's for sure.
I'm 53 now, and I was 39, nearly 40 when I discovered electronic dance music, so it's been 14 years, seriously the best years of my life.
Look, I think I'll continue to do this until the passion's not there anymore.
I'm going to try to make this last for as long as possible. I guess, I do want this to be my job till I'm old.
There's nothing else I want to do. It's just music. That's my passion. It is my life. It's my life.
It's going to be a part of me for the rest of my life, whether it's professional level or whether I just do it at home for myself. I'm always going to be doing it in some shape or form. I'm just trying to make some money over now and live and buy some nice stuff with it, like Star Wars stuff.
There has to be a sense of growing up at some point, I suppose, or not growing up, maybe maturing or something like that. And the thing is, I don't want to go out and get fucked up. I want to wake up at 6 in the morning the next morning and cuddle my daughter. That's what's important to me. But that doesn't mean I should give up the passion of music and going out and playing.
I don't think people are too old. I just think they've lost touch with just being free and free on a dance floor.
The number of people that have met at Sugar and tell me that they met at Sugar, and how happy, they are now, that they're married and whatever, and they, it's just nice for me to hear that people did meet at the club.
In a society where common experiences are less and less these days, it's all shared on the internet. There's nothing more real than a dance floor in a club with a DJ who's sweating and a room of sweaty people. That's it. It's primeval and raw, and it's as close as we ever get to doing the tribal thing, I think, as a culture these days.
I've been to America where I've gone into a gospel church and I've seen ladies as old as 80 and 90 going off like they are at a rave completely to the gospel music. And that looks amazing. And that woman is as free as a bird. She's loving life. She's going off. And I looked at that when I went to America and went, why isn't that happening in Australia? Why isn't it happening on dance floors? Why is it so taboo? Not quite sure, but I think it needs to come back. The classic picture on Facebook this week was the picture of Tomorrowland with the two flags of the two fighting countries in Gaza. And they commented on that in the dance music industry. There was these two people with the flags standing together at Tomorrowland and saying the music unifies people. It can. And it was the only universal language we all speak. We have done since the dawn of time. And I believe it can bring us together again. And people just need to open up their minds and hearts, yeah? I think the next generation, the Y generation, they're not as silly, but if they keep coming together with music and bringing it together and dancing for the right reasons, there's no violence. I've been on dance floors where I've looked across at a room and I've smiled at someone, I felt like I've known them forever. And that one moment in time, there's no barriers, there's no judgment, and that was amazing. And that can be done. And that's what it should be doing again, and I hope it comes back for everybody.
I get deep, I get deep, I get deeper into this thing. The deeper I go, the more knowledge I know, what to sing, what to bring, what. I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, I get deeper, deeper, deeper into the vibe. What? Chill Chilling in the corner at the shelter all by myself, checking it out. I'm not dancing no more, but why? 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 What? How on earth are you supposed to vibe around the fake ones, the ones that say they know what is what, but they don't know what is what. They just strut. What the fuck? What? I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, I get deeper into this thing, and I pretend that they're not there. I just stare up in the booth at the Dread Man spinning the song, spinning it strong, playing things like when can our house begin? That's my shit. What? Woo! I get deep, I get deep, I get deeper, I get deeper when people start to disappear, and it's about 6 o'clock. Woo! I'm feeling hot. Take off my sweater and my pants, and I start to dance, and all the sweat just goes down my face. And I pretend that there's nobody there but me in this place. I get deep, yo, I get deep. What? Woo! I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, I get deep when he takes all the bass out the song and all you hear is highs. And it's like, oh, shit. I get deep. I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, I get deep, and the rhythm flows through my blood like alcohol, and I get drunk and I'm falling all over the place. But I catch myself right on time, right on line with the beat, and it's so sweet, 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 sweet. I get deep, I get deep, I get deep. Why, if house music was air, then Dr. Love would be my song, and I would only take deep breaths and fill my lungs with the rhythm, with the bass. I get deep, I get deep.